There we go. I haven't tried this before. Huh. It's a lot more watered down than I thought it would be, but it's not bad. Hello and welcome to the Chaotic Rebirth podcast. My name is Katie and thank you for being here. So, I've been gone for a minute. I have been posting because I got really sick. I got really depressed. I had some stuff I needed to deal with energetically. And then I filmed a podcast and I didn't really like it. So I am here making another one that I hopefully will like because I really did not like the other one. I've been trying to edit it for like 2 weeks and I just can't. It's I don't know. I think I just need to maybe redo the topic. But anyway, so this is episode 3. And episode 3 is going to be a very important topic for me. And it's going to be about ego work. Okay. What is that? I've talked about it in some of my other videos before, and maybe even in my previous podcast. I cannot remember. Let's go back a little before I explain everything. So, what is shadow work? I'm sure that's a term that you have heard within the spiritual community. If you look up shadow work on Google, it is working with your shadow self, essentially deconstructing the parts of yourself that you might not like, or darker parts of you, or your trauma. So I think, in my opinion, a lot of people kind of skip over the ego work portion of that shadow work. So basically what your ego is, it's like a shield that is in front of you that protects you from experiencing the same trauma that you have experienced in the past. So an example that I usually give people, because this is something that's really hard for my ego sometimes, that I have very much worked on, and it's more has to do with like people in my life more than strangers. But when somebody tries to like educate me, like I don't really know the way to say it, because if I don't know something, like I've gotten really good at being like, I didn't know that, like thank you for telling me, stuff like that, especially within the platform that I'm on. But like sometimes like it even will come out now, like my boyfriend will say something a little bit wrong and I'll be like, well, I'm not stupid, like, you know. And that is a big trigger of mine, because when I was younger, I always felt stupid. I never felt smart because I wasn't like the top of my class, and I was surrounded by a lot of people that were really smart and the top of the class, and I just felt like I was lacking because I had a learning disability. So that is something that I have worked on within my ego. Another thing that I worked on is when people tried to tell me like I hurt them or hurt their feelings, I would immediately go into attack mode. Like, well, you did this and that and the other and instead of actually like listening to what they were saying to me and what they were trying to convey to me and tell me that they felt, I literally just attacked them, and then I would not talk to them anymore. I'd be like, that person's so toxic, like, oh my God, like they're just so bad, like, blah. And I lost a lot of friends doing that, when in reality, I was the toxic one, right? So that is ego. And that's something that I have worked very, very hard on within the last couple of years. I did like a whole kind of ego thing, oh my God, like 3 years ago. And it helped a lot. And honestly, I don't know how long, if you're watching or listening, how long that you've been around, but I used to have a business partner, and we used to offer very similar sessions. So like we were both psychic mediums. I did tarot, she did oracle, and we both offered sessions. And honestly, I think having that and seeing, because we were on the same like scheduler, so seeing when she got sessions, and sometimes they were clients that used to come to me and they went to her instead. And like that really helped me, honestly, because there would be times where my ego was like, well, what the fuck? How come I'm not getting sessions, you know? And it was helpful because it taught me that people will go to who they need to go to. and there was something that my business partner Danielle had to say to them that maybe I wouldn't be able to convey as well, or maybe they needed a certain kind of way that it needed to be said, because me and Danielle are very different. That really helped my ego a ton. And I still have issues sometimes, but I can tell when it's ego talking now versus when it's me. So like, if like somebody gets like a popular video on TikTok and I'm like, man, how come my video is not popular? And that's my ego talking of like, you're not doing enough, da 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 da. Like, they're not as good as you, like, like all that shit. And then I shut that down real fast. I'm like, you know what? No, they've been working really hard. They deserve to have their videos seen. There is enough space for us in the witch talk or witchcraft space. Ego work is extremely important. Checking your ego is extremely important. And the reason that I'm talking about this is because, and I am not going to talk about this for very long, but I have seen so many people on the internet who have very big spiritual egos. And that's dangerous. That's so dangerous, because you have a platform and you have unchecked ego. And that's just not good. It can lead down a really dark and scary path like psychosis.
Editing Katie here, not only can it cause psychosis, but having a big platform where you're trying to teach people about witchcraft and spirituality can be really dangerous as well, because that's how misinformation can get spread to people who are trying to learn.
And so that's why it's really important when you're getting into the spiritual realm to make sure that you're grounded in reality and to make sure that you have your ego checked before you really start doing any of this stuff. I also think that it translates over into deity work as well. So when you do ego work before you do deity work, it really helps, because we're diving into a lot of different topics, but it all kind of goes back to the same thing. If you don't do ego work, you can be more susceptible to trickster energies. Why is that? Because a trickster energy, the way that they communicate with us is by telling us, like, you're a prophet, you're special, you're different than everybody else, I chose you because da 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 da. Or you get the people that are like, Hades told me that I was prettier than Persephone, or like, he loves me more than Persephone. Like that kind of shit. No, absolutely fucking not. If you ever feel like a deity is telling you things like that, it's not. It's not. Deities understand that we are mortal. They do not put us on a pedestal. We are mortals. They are gods, goddesses, divine beings, whatever title you want to give them. Don't get it fucking twisted. We are not on their plane, and they will never tell us that we are. So when you don't have your ego checked, you can fall for that. You could be like, oh my God, really? Wow. Because you're not really checking that, like, part of yourself. And that's where big spiritual ego comes in. I see a lot of people who don't want to hear what other people have to say, because here's the thing. So even me, I posted on TikTok a book that I felt was important. It was called The Galderbrock, and the author, Stephen E. Flowers. I didn't know this, but people brought it to my attention after I posted that video, because that book has a lot of stabs from the 13th century and stuff. So it is like after Christianization, but it's still magic. It still works. And I think those are important to know. They could be helpful. I've used them in my own practice. So that's what I was saying, but I did have people be like, hey, yo, this author is linked to white supremacy and racism, and I was like, holy shit, for real? And then I Googled it, and it was very fast. I found everything really quickly, and instead of yelling at people for, well, it's just my opinion, or like, whatever the fuck, I made a video, and I said, I am so sorry. that is not the messages that I want to like portray. I also fell victim to new age spirituality when I just started out, and I did in fact use white sage. It's not something that I'm proud of. I was not even remotely as well educated as I am now, and I still have so much to learn. And so I learned that it was a closed practice, and I didn't fight or argue with anybody about it because I was like, you know what? It's not my practice, so who the fuck am I to say anything, right? The people who argue and the people who kind of, there's no such thing as closed practices. You can't close a plant. That's ego, bro. What, you think you know better? I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to get heated on this podcast because, like, this is just something that is driving me up the fucking wall recently. And I want to bring awareness to it. And as I could make a million TikTok videos, but I feel like talking about it on a podcast might be a little bit better so I could actually get everything that I want to say out instead of making 18 different videos. You know? So, yes. Ego work is very, very, very important. How do you do ego work? That's such a great question. Awareness is really helpful, but I also teach this on my Patreon. So I have ego work, shadow work, inner child work prompts on my Patreon as I speak. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, go ahead and go there. But what's important is acknowledgement of the fact that you have an ego and understanding how your ego translates over into like everyday things and what happened to you in the past that makes you react like that. So when, like I said, when I was a child, I always felt really dumb. And so I am very defensive about people making me feel that way because it is a trigger of mine. So looking into your triggers as well could really help you do ego work. I'm not saying that everything that triggers you is a part of your shadow work, ego work. Well, it would be a part of your shadow work, but you know what I mean? Like I don't think that every single thing that triggers you is ego because it's not. Sometimes, like, I mean, if you have PTSD, I mean, you're going to have triggers. I have OCD. I have OCD triggers, like things that just kind of trigger the OCD. Like I'll be fine and then something will happen and then my OCD will go insane. So there's triggers for different things. But for your ego, a good way to tell your trigger is how you react to people. So if you start to get defensive, that might be something that you need to look into. Like, why am I getting so defensive? Why is this upsetting me so much? So like in everyday life. But if you want to do what I did, so basically I got into a really nasty fight with my friend, and I love her dearly. And she was like, if you don't like figure this out, I can't be friends with you. And I didn't want to lose her as a friend. And so I really dug deep and was like, why do I act like this? And that's when I researched ego and how it works and how to check it. Right. So that's my advice to all of y'all, on that. But it is really important to make sure that you are doing the proper work when you get into these things. Shadow work, ego work, inner child healing, connecting with yourself and your higher self is so important. And I feel like that is sometimes a part of witchcraft and spirituality that is kind of left out, especially since the aspect of deities is so like fun. I feel like a lot of people want to just jump into that. No. They can help you with a lot of that stuff. They can. But in order for you to jump into that, you need to start kind of making the progress yourself, because I didn't really have any deities around me until I started doing that. So it once you start and show that you do want to heal and you do want to change, that's when deities really come out of the woodwork and they're like, okay, you're proving that you actually want this, right? So yeah, for everybody out there, question people. Like, don't trust what you hear on the internet, even from me. You don't have to trust me if you don't want to. Like I am a firm believer in everybody making their own conclusions. And so make sure you do research on everything that somebody says. Do not take what someone says on TikTok for face value, especially about this stuff, but honestly, about fucking anything. People on TikTok are not the end all be all. People on YouTube are not the end all be all. People on Instagram are not the end all be all. Just because they have experience or because they seem like they are well educated and well versed in a topic does not mean that they know everything. Nobody does. I don't fucking know everything. I'm learning something new every single day. And it's important to acknowledge that, and even within yourself. Like, if you are wanting to learn more about this, knowing that every single day is going to be an opportunity to learn something new, and not trying to learn everything all at once, because you can't. Like, there's so many aspects of witchcraft and deity work and things that I feel like I still need to learn. And I try to just be open to learning these things. Reiterating, ego work is important. Make sure you do your shadow work and connect with yourself when you're doing this stuff. Also, when you're doing shadow work and ego work, making sure that you take time for yourself to like process and do some self-care. I feel like that's something that is overlooked because, I mean, you have to understand that like this is trauma and this is psychology, and this is going to be difficult for your brain because you're opening a wound, and like it's going to put you in fight or flight. So making sure that you take care of yourself and understand what you're doing. And I also always suggest that people have a therapist, even though it's not like really something that everybody can have. I don't have one right now because I can't afford it. So it's not accessible for everyone, but if you can, you should. And don't trust what everybody says on the internet. Make conclusions for yourself and understand like what you think is important. People like me are just here to help you along the way, to give you what I have experienced and what I've learned from those experiences. And if you trust me, thank you. If you don't, that is totally like your thing. Like, I don't judge anybody that doesn't want to like trust what I say, because I don't know everything. And so it's important to get information from all different fields. You could listen to like a podcast like this and then do research on it yourself when you hear something that you find interesting, or read a book or watch another informative video. But making your own conclusions is really important. This podcast really spiraled into a million different ways. I think I had a lot to talk about because the internet has been driving me crazy. But thank you for listening to this podcast that is kind of like a rant, if I'm being quite honest. I did go on for a while. But I just think it's really important, especially for those who are just starting out. Like, you guys don't know who you can trust. And I like to think that I am a trusted person for a lot of different areas. And if I don't know how to answer a question, I will either direct you to somebody that I think will, or I will tell you I don't know. And to research it maybe for yourself, or maybe I'll look into it. I want people to be able to feel safe coming to me. But again, like, make your own conclusions for things. Okay, let's take a sip of our drink. That was a lot. I'm sorry that I put this on on you guys, but fuck, it's important. So, cheers. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. I will talk to you guys soon in another podcast episode that hopefully won't be as ranty. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.